So my name is Novella Ford, and I'm the manager of public programs here at the Schomburg Center for Research in Black Culture. And we thank you so much for joining us this evening for tonight's For When Harlem Was Sweet, A Woman's Work Is Never Done. Tonight's conversation will encapsulate the dynamic women of 409 and 555 Edgecombe and beyond, some of whom history has relegated to the background, eclipsed by the famous men they married. Introducing us to the wonderful women of 409 555 are Karen D. Taylor, the founder and executive director of While We Are Still Here. Also joining us is Rosemari Mealy, an adjunct professor at City College of New York, Center for Worker Education. Dr. Louise Patterson, who is, as she told me that I can say, is quasi-retired on some days. On other days, she is a physician at Weill Cornell Medicine Primary Care. And moderating the conversation is Tina Campt, the Ann Whitney Olin Professor of Africana and Women's Gender Studies, Director of Barnard Center for Research on Women, and Chair of the Africana Studies Department at Barnard. Last, please welcome Dr. Campt, Dr. Patterson, Professor Mealy, and Karen Taylor.
But today, we are here to talk about the people who often get cast in those long shadows, which are the women of Edgecombe Avenue.
From the early part of the 20th century through many decades, the buildings were home to a wide array of Black folk. Both buildings were socioeconomically mixed, but we, of course, are most familiar with the celebrated and the more well-to-do residents because of how historians choose to focus their work.
So as we talk in this conversation, we'll find out that Edgecombe Avenue did come into the life of Maida because she ended up living at I think it was in one of the apartment buildings at 218 Edgecombe. So it's like the circle, and they were influenced by the fact of living in this community, and they left history that attests to that.
Childhood years living in 409 Edgecombe Avenue with my parents, Louise and William Patterson. So I bring that personal touch to the evening.
About what was the impact, on the one hand, of living in this particular neighborhood or this particular building on their radical politics and their ability to live it, and also on their relationship with other Black women, activists, intellectuals, artists, and scholars.
And so to be a communist was to, and to be an open communist, was to run the risk of losing your job, losing your family, losing your friends, and being run out of town.
I mean, there was a lot of class differences going on, too, here when we talk about this period. And oftentimes in our history, we don't talk about the class differences. We talk a lot about, and they were both race women, you know, I mean, internationalists, Pan-Africanists, both asserted that that's what they were.
But just in terms of Shirley Graham Du Bois, I mean, talk about the influence, you know, in the Communist Party. A lot of people say she's the one who finally convinced Du Bois to actually join the Communist Party. Her contribution is really, her contribution to radical women, to revolutionary women, is really, really, it's a shame that it is so underground. That's
of Black women who were brought over chattel just like the men in the ships, in the slave ships. There we were, sold on the auction block just like the men. There we were, slaving in the fields just like the men.
None of them started, their careers did not start with that partnership. They were already independent and autonomous before that. They had started their careers independently, and their partnership both supported them and they continued their career.
But I think there's a strand that goes throughout all of these women. In the 30s and the 40s, they were extremely progressive when it came to their whole Pan-Africanist stance.
You know, they were there, and they understood the importance of connecting our struggle, the African-American struggle for liberation, with the struggle for liberations of colored peoples around the world. And that the enemy was also a common enemy.
You know, not trying to glorify things that we did when underneath there was some very negative things going on. So it's a question of, again, taking the truth, using young people to develop this, and it's happening. So if you know of other young sisters who are interested in projects like this, then you need to let us know. And we need to be engaging you. We need to be engaging you.
Thank you again for being such a wonderful audience. Thank you to all of our panelists. Thank you.